live on my YouTube and Facebook channel. I am going to be looking at my questions if anything comes up. Alright, so let me come over here. Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how to transfer clothing into a pattern. I want to show you how to do that. There are lots of great ideas out there, have tutorials and all that kind of stuff on how to do it. I just wanted to show my audience how to do it. I also have our summer camps are coming up for kids, so check out my website for that. It's garnersewingroom.com. On my Facebook group, you guys will get notifications about these. We have summer camp starting June 14th all the way through August 16th, so check that. Okay, so really fast, but not really. Just wanted to go through how to transfer your pattern piece. A pair of like old pajamas or something like that into fabric. Here is not stretchy, right? So it's a little harder to transfer a pattern from like a t-shirt or something like that that's stretchy, because if you stretch it, the pattern is not going to be the same. So just so you know, what you're going to need is a pair of pants or a pair of pajamas, shorts or pants. You're going to need some paper. This is some tracing paper that I have here at the studio. We actually have these for our garment students and our pattern making students. You don't have to have a French curve, but anything that has a curve to it would be helpful. This is my French curve. You can kind of see it on camera. Straight ruler is also helpful, in a marking tool. You can use a pen or a Sharpie. I'm going to be using a Sharpie today because I want you guys to see what shows up. And then you're going to need a pair of fabric scissors. I'm sorry, not fabric scissors, a pair of paper scissors. So I'm not going to be using one. Another thing you can use as well that's very helpful are pattern weights. So you don't have to have pattern weights, but I like to use pattern weights, especially for this paper, because it's been rolled, so it lays out flat. So here are my paper scissors. Alright, so I'm going to get everything and some pins. Pins are good too. If you don't have pattern weights, pins will work too. You're going to need something to hold your paper down if it's not already flat. You could do this directly onto poster board. So I use poster board a lot to transfer my patterns. The Dollar Tree, you can get it for 50 cents if it's the white poster board. For the colored poster board, it's 50 cents. It's $1. So I got a lot of poster board. I find it's actually cheaper than buying cardstock because it's bigger pieces and I don't have to just sit there and paste things together. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and roll this out. And you're going to see that it kind of wants to keep coming back towards me. So that's why I need my pattern weight. You can also put your other things down on top of it as well. All my tools on top. I'll lay mine out. So this is a 72-inch by 32-inch piece of paper. It's just a good sized piece of paper for us to be able to transfer patterns onto. So I like to use big pieces of paper when I'm doing this. Okay, so these are a pair of pajama bottoms that my son had. And he likes that they're fluffy and they're soft, but unfortunately, they started getting pretty bad tears in the crotch area, and they can't fix it. It's really bad. It's just the fabric itself. So instead of throwing them out, I'm going to use them for my pattern pieces. So you're going to have to establish which is the front and which is the back. So the front of these pajamas for me are where the pull ties are. I want to make the pajama bottoms very loose, so I'm not transferring the front and the back separately. I'm just transferring the back. This is great if you want to do a pair of pajama bottoms for Father's Day. Because Father's Day is right around the corner, and you don't have a pattern piece, you don't know what size he is. That's totally okay. Grab one of his existing pair of pajama bottoms that you already know fit him, and follow along, okay? So I'm going to actually pinch, and I'm lining up my center seams, I'm lining up my back crotch seam, and I'm laying it down. See that? I have a long swoop here. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're going to transfer pretty much. And then you want to lay it all down flat. So you really want to make sure everything is nice and flat as possible. So back here is the back of the pants, and this is the front of the pants. Okay, so this is the back. I'll show you how to transfer the front in case you want to make them that are a little bit more form-fitting. That's totally okay. I'll show you that as well. But if you only want to just make very loungy pants, this is what we're doing. Okay, so grab yourself a Sharpie. Down for a second. It helps. Okay, so just grab yourself a Sharpie, any kind of marking tool, and you can actually do this first in pen to draft it, and then or pencil, and then put it with a Sharpie. But I'm going to go ahead and just do it with Sharpie. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm not touching the fabric with my Sharpie. I'm right outside of this, and I'm just making small like cross lines where things kind of are, and it's not like I'm perfectly tracing it. I'm making more like dashed lines where things are. Okay, so I just roughly just showed all the way around. There you go. That's good. Okay, so now I'm going to do is I'm going to trace it out all the way with my ruler. So back here there is a slight curve to it. The bottom of the pants, not really, so I can just okay, so this is our back piece, bottom of our pants, the inner leg, and then this is the crotch seam. Up here is the waistband. So this has an enclosed waistband. So this is our pants. All we did was put it down and trace around it. That's what we did. Just all you do is just rough trace around it. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to do the front part of the pants. Okay. So this is the back. I'm going to go ahead and label this as back. Always mark your pattern pieces. So many times I've got pattern pieces laying around and I'm like, what is this for? I don't even know. Alright, so let's do pattern pieces, everything. So I'm folding it so that this, and it's going to be a little bit baggy in here. It's going to feel like you're having to do a lot of adjusting because the back of your pants accounts for your bottom. So it accounts for your bottom, like when you sit and things like that, whereas the front does not have that. You don't have to have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip these over so you guys can. So there you go. There we go. Okay. So now this is this. You're going to see that this line here, when we do this line here, it's not going to be as deep as this line. So. Okay, so I just roughly traced around it. The little dash thing didn't quite work for us on camera the first time, so I just kind of rough drew it in there. You get mine. Straight ruler. already said. You need to add seam allowance to this. So this pattern does not have seam allowance because the pants we are using are already sewn together. So they're already in the seam together. So you have to add a seam allowance to this. So if you're new to sewing, you didn't know what a seam allowance is. A seam allowance is the difference between where you cut your fabric out and then you sew it together. So you have to have a gap between the cut edge and where you're going to sew. And that's called the seam allowance. So you need to add a seam allowance to this as well. So it's not hard to do. You can add anywhere from a 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, a 1/2 inch, or all the way up to an inch as a seam allowance. Whatever you use, mark that on your pattern piece, and that's what you will use. So like if I'm gonna do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm writing that on my pattern. I'm only going to do that to the back piece because I'm not going to use my front piece. I'm only using the back piece. I'm making this very easy so you don't have to keep up with pattern pieces. And I'm going to tell you that why, because I'm going to try to do, after we finish this, we're going to go ahead and cut it all out, and then I will sew it together. I'm not going to show you how the cutting out and that type of stuff. So we'll take a break, like an intermission, and then we'll come back. Just making little dots along my seam, my current line that I'm using for my cut line. I'm going to go ahead and just continue to make my dot 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And these need to be 45-degree angle size. So these do have to be straight. Okay, so that's my 1.5 inches up there. Now for the bottom of the pants, same goes there. The bottom of the pants, you're going to need to add 1.5 inches for a hem down here. Now these are pajama bottoms for my son. These are already long on him. I'm not adding it to this pattern piece when I do my cutting. I'm going to do it now so you guys can see what we're doing, but I'm not going to add it to his pants because these are already long on him. So I'm adding 1 inch. My ruler is 1 inch long. Okay, so it's nice. I'm adding 1 inch hem. So 1/2 inch. Plus another 1/2 inch. So you roll it over once, that's a 1/2 inch. You roll it over again, that's another 1/2 inch. So a total of 1 inch for your bottom half. Okay, so that's how we do this. I like to draw a line for my grain line. So this helps me stay parallel with my selvage. So I'm cutting my pattern piece out properly. So all you have to do now is cut this out. Get your fabric, cut it out of the fabric, and then I'm going to show you guys how to sew it all together. He picked out his own fabric this time. So if anybody knows, if you know my son, he's very excited about everything all the time. He's very energetic and he loves to be on camera. Last week he was so upset that the live was not working. She was like, what? I wanted to go on and tell everybody to like you and follow you and everything. I was like, I'm so sorry. Okay, that's our pattern piece. The rest of it you can't, I'll add the seam allowance and everything to this one later. But for time's sake, alright, so there's our pattern piece. Let me go get the fabric so you can see the fabric. He's super excited. That wasn't too long. I knew exactly where it was, but it was in the back. That's the fabric you want. So, he's really been into Harry Potter. He had a friend at school that was very into Harry Potter. One of his friends, Chloe. There's one set. You can barely see what it is on the camera, but I'll go ahead and cut it out so you guys can see how I do this with 1.5 yards for a good sized pattern piece. Now, this has already been washed, so I don't have to worry about shrinkage. Always pre-wash your fabric before you start cutting into it when it comes to garments. Now, just as a little tidbit, you don't always have to do that with this type of fabric. This is a flannel, cotton flannel, because it's pajama bottoms. So it depends on what it is. If it's very loungy, relaxed, it's not going to be all that detrimental to you. If it shrinks by 1/4 of an inch, then don't worry about it. But if you have it that it's like a stretchy fabric or it's form-fitting. Okay, so there we go. Cut out. I'm just following along my black line that I made. So here's another little tidbit. Do not cut your pattern or cut out your fabric with your pattern piece still on your fabric. Please don't do that. What's going to happen eventually, you're going to cut into your pattern piece, and then you're going to have to tape it. Ask me how I know. I've seen it happen. I try not to do it. I really try not to do it personally. But I have seen people do it, and it's not pretty. Or you're so scared of cutting the pattern piece that you don't do an accurate cut of the fabric. So here's 2 pieces, my back pieces. I'm going to do another 2 pieces here. I'm going to keep it pinned together and set it aside. So for you at home, 1.5 yards would be fine if you're looking at something like boys sizing. If you're looking for men's sizing, if they're small or medium, you're going to need about 3 yards. If they are a large or an extra large, you're probably going to need more like 4 to 4.5 yards. You won't need if you get fabric that's larger than 45 inches. This is 45 inches wide. That's why it's more narrow. What's it called? Like the flannel type of like shirting type of fabric that you can obviously use for pajama bottom that comes 58 inches wide. So you don't need more than 4 yards for an extra large in that size. I'll try to put some comments below and some ideas of how much fabric you'll need for different sizes. Now these are approximate. Like if you're going to need it, maybe do take your pattern piece first out and measure your pattern piece to know how many yards you're going to need to get. So if you have your pattern piece out, right, the length of it is what I would say you need to have times 2. Roughly. You're going to have some left over, but this will be the safest way to do it. So the length of it. So for this pattern piece is a little less than 36 inches. So 2 yards would work for this one. There is a way to also cut it in there, but just to be on the safe side, 2 yards. So if your dad's pant legs ends up being like 42 inches or something like that, then I would suggest buying like 46, 48 inches in length. You could always ask for inches at Joann's. They don't have to do it exactly by yardage, so you don't have to round it to the next yard. But that's what you're going to need times 2. So whatever the length of your pant leg is, times 2 is going to be what you're going to ask for at Joann's cutting counter. Okay. There's also some fabric available at Michael's, but I don't think it's going to be the type you're going to need for this project. I'll give you guys an alternative project that you guys can do for Father's Day tomorrow. I'm working on that, so you guys will see that tomorrow. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to transfer your clothing, pant leg. So from clothing to pattern, adding the seam allowance, making all your markings, all that stuff. I'll have this edited and up on my YouTube channel, which is Garner Sewing Room. And that way you guys can review it and look through it, and it'll just kind of like just do the snapshot of everything we did and the one cutting out for Dwight Jr.'s pants off to get him some more fabric. All right, guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned in with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, and I'm off to be doing some more guys. All right, guys. Thanks.